Are you ready to spark a reading revolution in your community? Proven strategies and Read 20 that have transformed literacy programs in schools and in neighborhoods just like yours. Communities who have implemented these strategies have seen dynamic increase in engagement, improved literacy rates, and renewed love for reading among students and families. On this episode, he's going to share the exact steps from his book, Read 20, that you can apply today to a culture of reading in your school or community. Don't miss this inspiring conversation. Right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay abreast on what's happening here on Transforming Lives. I appreciate you stopping in.
Transforming Lives. Inspiring stories from educators worldwide. Impact happening worldwide. Your transformation starts here.
All right, so let me go ahead and get my apologies out of the way. I just fumbled on live TV, right? But again, that's okay. We make mistakes, then we move on. I'm excited about my next guest. When we talk about literacy, it is something that is very important to the life of whoever you are, of a community. That's important. So my next guest, I'm going to bring on Dr. Wayne. And you're going to correct me when you come on. Dr. Rowe. All right. Here we go. Welcome to the stage. Correct me. Go ahead, sir. My apologies.
Look, here's the crazy thing. It's Rodolfich, and it's Rodolfich, just like it's spelled. And look, man, being called anything is better than some of the things I've been called in 30 years working in education. So I appreciate when somebody calls me by any name other than some of those other names I've been called. Because, when you demand a lot, sometimes you have a little friction.
Oh, right. Absolutely. That is true. And thank you for coming on the show. I've known you from being in Mississippi and what you did in Pascagoula, Gaucher. I got that right. Right. Okay. Gaucher. And the dynamic impact you had on that part of our state. So I'm honored to have you on to share more about what's happening in your life. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask the question, but I'm looking at your background. How's the weather where you are?
It's beautiful all the time. I'm sitting in my backyard right now on Lake Wales, and my wife has wanted to live in Florida for the longest time, and my daughters are dancers here in Florida. I have 3 of them, and it's just a tremendous atmosphere to raise children in.
Absolutely. And I'm a little envious of that wonderful background, but that's okay. I can see it, and congratulations to you in that move. So I'm going to go ahead and start out. You've had a remarkable career in education. Can you share a bit about your journey and what inspired you to dedicate your life to improving community literacy?
Well, let's talk about, if we want to go all the way back to the beginning, it's really an interesting story. I grew up working in the seafood industry on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, which meant from the time I was 15 until I was about 22 years old, I was on a shrimp boat shoveling shrimp. Every summer, my father ran seafood factories. And it was my first introduction to language barriers was whenever the Vietnamese came to America. And we had 3 Vietnamese families move into our community. And you can imagine in Mississippi, that's a real shock for both the Vietnamese and the people who live in Mississippi. But this was the primary group of people who worked in our seafood industry. And so we automatically had a language barrier that we had to overcome on both sides to make sure that the Vietnamese people were able to have great commerce in our community, which fast forwards me to when I began my educational career. When you're a coach or a teacher, more so if you're a teacher, you probably realize it at some level. But whenever you're a coach, you don't really see language barriers as an issue. So when you start talking about how we're going to help our English language population, we have to make sure that we're putting in the, SIOP. We're getting our ESOL endorsements, that we're putting in a seal of our literacy so that children who speak other languages can have a seal. So there's a lot of different areas that we're looking at, and I'm a little bit ahead of myself. But the reason I'm making that point is in where I am now in Lake Wales,
Yes.
We have a very high minority population. It's really not a minority population. It's the majority population. Our African-American and Hispanic population is larger than our white population, had the same effect in Pascagoula-Gautier School District. And in the Pascagoula-Gautier School District, we're able to have every school, every elementary school, middle school, academy, high school was either an A or a B. We're an A district with a 90% graduation rate. So a lot of times you get these excuses, and I got some of those excuses when I arrived in Lake Wells. I asked, why are we at 30% in biology, or why are we at, only 53% in literacy? And the first thing that people say is, oh, well, you have a population of, I said, please never use that as an excuse for why we're not achieving. We have all types of ways that we can remedy any language barrier or any issues that children have with reading. So that's kind of how Read 20 came about. My personal journey was 6 years as a teacher and coach.
Mhm.
Then I became an assistant principal under Dr. Hank Bounds, and Dr. Hank Bounds is renowned in his success. He was the state superintendent of education, the commissioner of the IHL, and eventually the president of the University of Nebraska. So being trained by Hank Bounds was a really helpful thing for me, and having him as a mentor has been very helpful to me. And he had the same approach. We weren't going to make excuses for children not being successful. And part of doing that is making sure that we're holding everybody accountable for the role that they have within the organization in order to help our children to be successful in school. So then I became a principal at Gautier High School, and we had a remarkable event that occurred there. And I know the people that know me get tired of hearing about this, but it's never been done before. It's never been done since. When we took the state subject area test, our Algebra 1, U.S. History, and Biology 1 were all 100% pass rates with 400 mean scale scores with plus 90 proficient and advanced. And people had said, oh, you could never be successful in that school academically. You'll have a great band and athletic teams, but academically, we did that within 3 years. And again, it goes back to the same idea that we're going to find what the issues are. We're going to focus on those issues, and we're going to conquer those issues. And what I've found to be, as a superintendent, as a principal, assistant principal, coach, teacher, the number one challenge we have in America right now, and it continues to be a challenge. I actually sent a letter through Dane Maxwell to Mar-a-Lago to President Trump so that he can say, hey, folks, we need you to read 20 minutes every day with your children. You're their first teachers. And I am adamant that I'm going to get that message through to the new president. And I've tried to get that message across the boards everywhere I've ever been. And I'm going to continue on with, we have to be teaching our children to read. And reading doesn't start when they start school. Oh, no. Reading starts whenever they're born. And in my house, it's before they're born. We're reading books and playing music for our children.
Right. Absolutely. This is powerful. As an educator, I see that impact of reading with your child. At first, for my boys, I have 2 boys, and they didn't like it at first. But to model that behavior helps them as well. So I can definitely agree, and I know that you're going to make sure that gets accomplished. So as a educational leader, you've kind of shared some of the principles in a sense, but can we kind of dive a little bit more into like the key principles, the values that guided you in transformation, and particularly in reading and in literacy?
Well, being a graduate of Delta State University, I have 3 degrees from Delta State University. And Delta State University is in Cleveland, Mississippi, which is right in the middle of the Mississippi Delta. You can't find a more impoverished place in the world. Well, I guess in the world you can, but in America, it's one of the places that has the most poverty and the most opportunity is anytime we have crisis, I see opportunity. Right. So rather than complain and make excuses, what's the number one thing that our children in the Delta needed to do? They need to learn how to read. And, while we're on the subject, because as I told you before we came on air, there's several things that I'm going to share with you. One was a lot of people are turned off whenever they see a person that's supposed to be in a leadership position wearing a hat turned backwards, but there's a purpose for it. Yeah. So when we talk about that investment of reading with your children for 20 minutes a day, that isn't included in what they read at school or the homework that they're assigned. This is 20 additional reading moments that are family time, where you're working with your guardian or your uncle or your aunt or your cousin, whomever. I just can't say enough how important it is. So the hat I'm wearing has 1.4% on it. 1.4% represents that amount of your day. So you're going to make a 1.4% investment in reading with your children every day, and you're dramatically going to increase their ability and vocabulary and ability to pronounce words, ability to understand categories of words, sound out words. All those things are important while children are growing up developmentally. And if
Right.
we can get that started at the home with parents as our first teachers, it's one of the most important things that we do. When I put the hat on regularly, it's read 20.
Yeah.
So I use that as a conversation piece. Anywhere I go, I'm promoting reading. Even my vehicle, and I'll show you my vehicle later, is completely wrapped in read 20.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. And looking at the numbers, that's a small 1%. We talk about getting 1% better. That 1%, 1 4/10% better. Man, that's wonderful.
Well, and when you think about it, you have Atomic Habits out there, which pretty much gives the same principles about getting a little bit better every day, because every day we're either contributing to or taking away from the quality of what we do, no matter what it is that we're doing. So if we read every day, if we lift weights every day, we get stronger. If we practice anything, and you can go to Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule. And some people don't agree with the 10,000 hour rule, but I absolutely agree with it. And actually, I calculate everything that we do based on that 10,000 hours of practice. I used to have my administrators in the Pascagoula Gautier School District calculate how many hours have they actually been an administrator over the course of their career, and how many times are you mastering that principle. And in my career, I've had over 30,000 hours of working as an administrator. So very quickly, I just wanted to show you, this is the vehicle. And I told you we're going to be primitive, but that is my actual Forerunner right there. That's the Read 20 mobile, and I keep books in it. And if I see children walking across the parking lot, my children distribute books to the children walking across the parking lot. But we do some other crazy things, too, to get books out to kids in our communities.
Right. So if you do the same thing over and over again and it doesn't produce the results that you desire, we kind of move to the place of insanity. And doing that is something that's not normal, but it's marketing. And once you get somebody's attention, now you can actually go in and provide them with something different. So I am 100% with it. So we need to jump into this Read 20, because creating a reading revolution in your community, like, what key message do you hope readers can take away from this?
Well, here's a few things that we do that are a little bit different than what you see everywhere else. And I'll give you the number one thing that's different. As a superintendent in both the Pascagoula Gautier School District and in Lake Wells, I prided myself on making literacy home visits. And on those literacy home visits, I had a literacy packet with a brand new book, some ideas about why it's important to read. I would include cards like these cards here. This is the Read 20 pledge. It's a pledge you can take with your children, and this is all in my book. And then on the other side, I've got the literacy proverb, where you talk about you better be reading, just like the lion and the gazelle.
Yeah.
In America, if you're raising children, you better be reading. I also have my philosophy of education, which is give every child a chance, that I wrote at Delta State University. It's in the book as well. And then I've got another on the backside of that card. I've got preach, because sometimes when you're working with administrators, they struggle. They struggle with confidence. They struggle with, am I doing what's right? So I wrote something for one of my administrators about just the power that he had, because he's one of the best administrators I've ever worked at, but he was having some confidence issues. So when you talk about how are you spreading the word, it is simple. Number one is to generate interest in reading in your community. It's getting parents to read. It's getting businesses to accept, hey, we have a role in this, because, whenever you talk about economic development and Chamber of Commerce, when they talk about what's the challenges that we're facing, they're always talking about our graduates and how competent they are and whether or not they're ready for the workforce. So, you have career pathways now, you have CTE now, but one of the things that they talk about is literacy rates and the ability to train the people who work for them. Because if you can read, you've got a chance. So do you know how we interact with business, industry, hospitals? And I take hospitals separately because it's a little bit more secluded to basic business and industry, but you have waiting rooms all over hospitals. You have waiting rooms in dentist office. So what we do is we take books and we put them business book bins, and we call our business book partners. I had 63 in Lake Wells, and we put books in the lobby areas so children can have reading materials while they're sitting there, because now most of your waiting rooms prohibit bringing electronics in to the waiting room. So you have to have something there for children, and that resource is books. So that's one way that we're reaching people with the Read 20 concept. And we're articulating that to every business that we go into, because we have to have permission in order to place those books in those businesses.
Absolutely. And and when you, I get my moment whenever I go to, a doctor's office. I get that moment where I pick up something to read, and I, take that, it's not an extended time, but just I take that moment to actually read something to take up that time. We have a comment here. We got Miss Thomas. Hello, I love your Read 20 truck. Great interview and information. So we want to thank her for this comment.
Well, I'd like to comment on her comment.
Oh, okay. All right.
So Keitha Thomas and I worked together at Goche High School when I first became a principal. And she created a program within our school for our young ladies who were pregnant. And she would do pizza parties. She did everything she could to keep them in school and to motivate them. And it became a model program in Kids Count in 2009. That program became a model program for the state of Mississippi. So there's an event that occurred one day where we had a young lady who moved in from another school. She had not passed a state subject area test. Mm-hmm. And I was adamant that if you hadn't passed that test, you're going to pass that test. You couldn't graduate at that time without passing the test. Right. For me and this young lady are in the hallway going back and forth over and over. And there was a pizza party that day that she wasn't going to miss for tutoring. So Keitha said, we're moving the pizza party till after tutoring so you can get both things. You get the pizza and you get your tutoring. And the question was asked of me, Wayne, she's already failed the test. Why do you care if she passes it? Because that's a milestone. Graduation's a milestone. Right, yeah, it is. And this young lady needs to graduate more than anyone. And so having the heart, and I will say this about everywhere I've ever worked, I have had some tremendous people that have worked with me and have remained friends with them throughout the years. And there's a great love and respect for all of us in education. But our objective, Keith and I, was to not let one child miss the opportunity to graduate from school.
Right. Oh, that's powerful. I'm glad this connection happened. Right. So there is okay, here we go. All right. We got a conversation going on.
Well, she knows I love her. She's one of my dearest friends, and she's my main connector. She keeps me and my other friends from falling out because she's like, this is just business. Everybody's going to be accountable with him because it's true. It's because we have so little time. And what I talk about in my book, I actually break time down. And when you're in that 20 to 40 range, you don't value time as much as you do when you're 40 to 60 because you're on the back half of your life. And when you start thinking about how did I squander that time? If you're a 20-year-old athlete, and I played college football at Delta State and the Gulf Coast, but if you do not invest the amount of time in your craft and you're not as good as you think you could have been, you live with regret. I've had dreams where I woke up and I'm in the dressing room getting dressed for a game at Delta State thinking I have eligibility left. And you think about every moment that you squandered whenever you squandered your time. And that's why I tell everyone, make the most of every minute of your day. Make the contribution to where whatever you do, you're going to be the best at what you do. But the only way to achieve that is through the investment of time. And I'm going to share one other thing with you. So I talked to you about the business book partners.
Right.
So another way that we reach out to families in both Lake Wells, and I'll give you the background on Pascagoula Goche School District. I was not a fan of the third grade reading gate whenever it first came out. I felt like children at that age, and I had some backup from some of the literary organizations across the world. But whenever the legislature said we are going to require a third grade reading gate, I said we have to change our approach. We have to get parents personally involved in this at a higher level than we've ever done before, because I don't want one child not to be able to pass the third grade reading gate. Right. So when I talk about doing literacy home visits and taking the packets out to the homes, every school would prepare a list of 30 names of children. And back when I was in Pascagoula Goche School District, every third grader who was struggling with school, we would have them on a list. We'd make an Excel spreadsheet. We put their name on the list. And then I and my law enforcement people who navigated for me, because they efficiently got me around town, we went to every home of every child who was struggling with reading, and we brought a reading packet to the home, and we asked the parent, what more can we do to help your child to be successful in school? We had 0 negative interactions. Parents were glad that somebody cared enough to show up and check on them. They especially were happy that the superintendent was willing to do that. Right. And in Pascagoula, I had 10 elementary schools at the time. Ooh. So we were on the road a lot. And I'm going to show you another visual of this. And guys, I apologize for my primitive reporting. Okay. But this is just one example. You can see the thickness of it. This spans about 20 yards, 12-point font. but this is the list where I kept track of every home we visited, whether we made a connection, if I left a message, and what the connection was. In Mississippi, I hit between 70 and 80%. Over the course of my career, I've made over 4,500 literacy home visits as a superintendent. Basically 2,100 in Florida and 2,500 in Mississippi. So going to that home, asking parents what more we can do, providing a book for every child. And there was excitement whenever children saw my Read 20 mobile in Lake Wells. Children would come flocking to that Read 20 to get a book, and they knew it was all about reading. And you could ask any child in either community how many minutes you're supposed to read extra a day, and the children would tell you 20 minutes extra every day. And people say, well, isn't it dangerous to go out? I wouldn't advise, and I have to give this out in the book as well. I wouldn't advise anyone go out, number one, by themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Whenever you're going into any community, regardless, and I've walked into a community where a guy's got an AR-15 strapped on his back in an apartment complex walking around. I've walked into complexes where people are cooking crack under a stairwell. Everybody in those communities, I was there so much, they knew I was the guy bringing books to children. And people didn't have an issue with it. I wasn't there to give them an issue. I was there to help children by giving them books, and my partners all were the same. And I've had a great group of law enforcement people that I've worked with over the years. And here in Lake Wells, I had Julio Aceveda, Dr. Julio Aceveda, who was my right-hand man and did all the home visits with us. And the great thing with Julio was he was able to translate whenever we had conversations there. And the other thing that we did was every year, Julio Aceveda and I would go read Dr. Seuss dressed up as Dr. Seuss and read to 2,000 or 3,000 elementary children in their classrooms. And we would read both books in Spanish and in English.
Oh man, that's powerful. And to hear the leader, the top of the organization interacting and passing that vision down and connecting to that stakeholder of the parents, that's important. So we looked at what inspired you. We looked at kind of, what you hope for the readers, the learners to take away, the parents to take away from this. You've shared examples of how you've used it in the community, how you implement these strategies. And I know the viewers on and those that will view it later can see the impact, number one, with your props, because when you took your document right here and you had it right there to document these visits, I think that's powerful. And people are looking for change. They're looking for improvement, but sometimes they need a hand to move forward, right? So that's powerful. Yeah.
Well, and I'll give you one other example about how we, I don't know if we've talked about grocery stores and Walmart, but we also went to grocery stores at Walmart, Publix, and I'm going to show you the evolution of signage, okay? Because when I first started out, I was on fire, brand new Christian, just want to be sitting in the front row. Yeah. And then as I grew up a little bit, I was like, well, wait a minute, this may be a little bit too hard hitting. And it's kind of Old Testament versus New Testament. Old Testament stone, man. And you move in the New Testament, it's a little lighter in some of the spots. So I'm going to stand up and show you these resources real quick. So this is one of the resources, and I got to back up a little bit. My wife's scared I'm going to fall off the stairwell here. But this is the first posters. All of our administrators would stand in front of Jerry Lee's and Walmart, where the end of literacy is near. Please read with your child 20 minutes every day. And the end of literacy, that's kind of like end of the world's coming.
Right. Yeah, I see it.
Our children, that's where we're going. This is a little bit more challenging. If you can read this sign, you can read with your child. Please read 20 minutes every day. So that's the old Wayne. And I save those posters, but I love getting out. And if you can imagine 20 administrators standing in front of a grocery store wearing these signs and handing out books while we're doing it, because we gave books away at that as well. So these are the new signs here. Please read with your child 20 minutes every day. And then I've got the Read 20 pledge, which says, I pledge to read with my child 20 minutes every day before they can read. And then it goes on to talk about all the dimensions. And it says my 1.4% daily pledge. So we would stand in front of grocery stores. We'd stand in front of Walmarts. And we tried to share the benefits of reading with parents as they came in. And actually the media really helped me in Mississippi, because they came out and did multiple stories while we were standing out in the community. And they actually did an editorial on WLOX that reached thousands of people, where in the summertime, I would go stand in front of grocery stores on my lunch hour with these signs on and give books away to children, some of my team members. So my thing is getting the word out, marketing the importance of literacy.
Yeah.
When you start talking about, well, Wayne, what do you do inside the school? Well, inside the school, literacy is embedded in every subject area. So we're going to have a 10-minute reading session. Even in basketball, football, all those sports, I've got a picture of the tennis team reading at their tennis practice here in Lake Wells. In Mississippi at Goche High School, my basketball coach would start basketball practice with a book in one hand, dribbling with the other hand for the first 10 minutes of that night. And so we're reading at that time because we're stressing the importance of reading. I've got pictures of our football team in full uniform reading books. And we stress that extra time in there. But when you talk about what are the main things that you do, the first thing you have to do as a school leader is you have to make sure that all the resources that children should be receiving are available to them and that those are being done with fidelity. And I'll give you an example. We brought Orton Gillingham into Lake Wells to make sure that we were helping our special ed students, but not only our exceptional students, but other students who are struggling with reading. We brought in and trained Orton Gillingham. We brought in sheltered instructional observation protocol, and Dr. Julio Aceveda trained every teacher in the district on that. In the state of Florida, you have to obtain a reading endorsement in order to be a certified teacher in multiple subject areas. So we set out a plan, and Stacy Paget trained everybody in the district on getting that certificate. And I also sat in those after school classes and received my reading endorsement for the state of Florida, because if I'm going to ask my teachers to do it, I'm going to do the same thing I'm asking them to do. And I just think that's very important. But the other thing is I'm adding value to me if I can add a reading endorsement. And I was working on getting my ESOL endorsement as well, but I did not complete that one. But I plan to go back and finish that one because that's another endorsement that's required in the state of Florida. And that helps us with our Spanish-speaking students.
Right. Absolutely. So you have another individual, Darius Wilson. All right. Discussing.
Yeah. Well, on the very first day of school, I had a tradition as superintendent. When I was in Mississippi, I went to 550 classrooms on the first day of school. 17 schools, and I welcomed every child and teacher back to school. I would go door to door and I would say, hey guys, I'm Dr. Rodolfich. Just want to say welcome back and I hope you have a great school year. And sometimes say, make sure you're reading. And then I'd go to the next class, and I'd have different people that would try to go with me. And then Darius also, and he's a city commissioner in Moss Point as well. And he was one of our law enforcement people that he and I were out on a trip one day, and we're making these home visits. And I said, this is just, and he's he has a ministry background. And I'm like, this is just like ministry, man. We're out giving the good word, but we're giving the good word about education and reading with our children. So he's a dynamic leader in the Moss Point community, but he's also a major asset to the Pascagoula Goche School District.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, Mr. Wilson, for joining and making that comment. So, you began to highlight Read 20. Can we share some of the challenges that, the community that you face in the community, and how you still move forward, even though those challenges were there?
Well, I have had to deal with politics everywhere that I've been. And I've been a marked man at different times, and people have used different, issues to try to generate problems for me. And the way I respond to it is I am kid-centered. And I'll give you an example here. And that's something that no one really knows. Since my wife and I and my 4 children moved to Lake Wells, Florida, I've invested $20,000 of my own money in order to improve literacy in Lake Wells, Florida. I bought T-shirts that we have sent all over the world, all over the United States of America, to different communities. And in my book, you can see some of those pictures. I have one picture with one of my former principal, Al Sparkman. He is at the Little Bighorn in 30-degree weather, wearing a short sleeve Read 20 Lake Wells shirt to encourage people to read. And Little Bighorn is one of my favorite places. He's reading Nathaniel Philbrick's book, The Last Stand, while he's there. So we built this huge marketing campaign. And the way I built that was we traveled 100,000 miles around the country. I have a picture from Kenya, from Japan, from Paris, all these different people wearing Read 20 shirts. And we traveled 100,000 miles with these shirts. And the whole point was to come back to an opening of school convocation and to say, guys, last year we traveled 100,000 miles with these shirts. We have 20 square miles and we've got 500 people in this room that can spread the word of literacy. And we need to make sure that we're making that focus, because now we're going to move away from the world and other states, and we're going to totally focus on this community. And that's the purpose of the shirts. Every employee in the district received a Read 20 shirt. So we wanted to make sure that we're embedding that. The signs I showed you earlier, every single classroom had these Read 20 signs in the classrooms. So everybody had it as part of their culture and part of the new culture of the system.
Oh, absolutely. That's powerful. Even when you look at this marketing strategy that you had, of not just reaching just your area, but going out, confirming, bringing it back, and that for lack of better words, that validation of hey, here's how it's working out here. And now let's make it happen in our community. And that's powerful. That's marketing 101. Oh my goodness.
So my daughters, there's a series of pictures with my children in the book that talks about how they helped me to market Read 20. So they're at Cupertino, California at the Apple headquarters, wearing their shirts. There's a picture of them on Stanford Medical Center's roof with the Life Flight helicopter, in the Life Flight helicopter, wearing their Read 20 gear. There's a picture of my daughter reading on the roof of Stanford, which wasn't staged. She always has the book with her. She's the #1 reader in her class here in Lake Wells. She was the #1 reader in the PGSD for accelerated reader points. So, she's a 600, 700 point child in AR. And the other thing that we built here, and this is a cool incentive program for elementary schools, if you can find the funding, and you can actually find any type of funding for it. But we did what's called the Read 2600. And the Read 2600 is where if you are a kindergarten through second grader and you get 50 AR points, then you get a $10 bill. If you're a K through 5 student and you read 100 points, you get 20. And it goes all the way up to, if you get 600 points, you get a $100 bill at the end of the year. That was paid through our foundation here. Cool thing, by grade level, we had 4 elementary schools. And each grade level, the top reader on AR in each grade level got a Read 20 racing jacket that was custom made with their name embroidered on the front of it. And that was something that the children really appreciated as a reward.
Oh, that.
But
that's
the book, and what I've tried to encourage people to do, get the book and do a book study, because what are all these ideas? Every single idea that I've pitched to you, you've heard or seen something about that somewhere before.
Right.
But within the book, every single process is in this book. And I wrote the book so simply, and I'm going to show you the index. You don't have to read a full chapter to get the information. It is by page, the different. So if you want a specific detail on how you do it, you go to the specific page, and I've laid that out through a 4-page table of contents. That way it's simple for the reader, because, with technology, you just point and click. Right. But with the book, it's a little different. So now I've set that up. So all you have to do is go to that table of contents, but you can also get the book online. But my point is, I'm trying to spread the word about the importance of reading, and it's not a new message, but I think it's a message that's overlooked so many times because we're so connected to technology, and we can use this program, and all those programs are good with fidelity. Right. But there's nothing more important than a child being able to read when they start school, and then read proficiently by 3rd grade as a predictor of so many other things in their life.
Absolutely. So this is powerful, because even though my background is mathematics, I understand the importance of literacy because it impacts mathematics as well. So, you being from Delta State, you've shared just such a powerful a message, drive revolution. So I think you're familiar with the 2-minute warning, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the home. You have the floor. I'm gonna step out of the way. You have the floor to kind of share. You shared a lot, but if listeners want to have an immediate impact on their communities using these principles from Read 20, what are these three practical steps they can take today? You have the floor.
Okay. Number one, if you look here, if you friend me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, I do a newsletter that I do, done 18 of them so far this year. And it breaks down different things that you can do with your children as far as reading goes, and different organizations that we work with reading. There's another concept that we didn't get to discuss, which is building biomes. And so you want to talk about a great vocabulary builder for parents at home. If you look, and I'm sorry that these are not super easy to see, but my children and I have built biomes with different animals since they were 2 or 3 years old. They paint the biomes, they build all the implements that go with it, and then we buy like animals and they identify. So they're a constant vocabulary lesson. The other thing that I didn't mention is put a family interactive center. We had the first Excel by 5 toy library on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, actually the second in the state. But we had the first family interactive center, Aaron Jones Family Interactive Center, that had 17 themed rooms where children could go in these different playrooms. There's a wetlands room, there's a technology room, there's a planetarium, there's a flight simulation room, there's a grocery store, a bank, a fire station. All those rooms have vocabulary embedded in them. Children are learning without even knowing. We would do Super Saturdays on Saturday. We did, over a course of about 10 years, we had 50,000 people attend Super Saturdays. These are families coming and learning about different career pathways, learning in all these different rooms and playing. And the whole time they're there, they're building their vocabulary while they're having fun. So I would say, number one, read with your children before they're born, and then every single day, make that part of your life. Number two, make sure that the schools that your children attend, that they're getting the accommodations that they need, regardless of what they are, and make sure you know who's responsible for giving those accommodations to children. And number three, as a parent, please make sure that you are advocating for the school your child goes to, but you're holding that school accountable for the work that they're supposed to be doing for all children, because it is very important that our public schools, it is the greatest delivery system on the planet for giving children education, and we need to make sure children are getting a great education in every school that they attend.
Absolutely. You have added value. Thank you so much for sharing just from the beginning. And I'm excited for you and the direction it's going and the impact that you're having. You've had on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, in Florida, and even in the world. Much success to you as you move forward as well. So I'm gonna drop you in the background, and I'm gonna close it out, and I'm gonna share your website. So if you can give me 2 to 3 minutes after we shut this down, love to continue our conversation.
One last word.
Okay, go ahead.
Could not do anything that I've done in my career without having excellent people who've supported me. And it is not any work of me or the people that support me. It is the work of teachers in the classroom. They're the most valuable asset, and we need to make sure that we're protecting them. Last thing that you didn't cover with you, I made 1,221 classroom visits where I left 3 affirmations in every classroom I went to for our teachers, telling them the great things that they're doing in their classroom. I think it's important that we're patting teachers on the back and thanking them for what they do every single day.
Powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Who wouldn't want to have a leader like that around them? So thank you so much. I'm going to set you in the background. We're going to get back in a conversation in just a moment. Listen, this was powerful. I'm going to go read in just a few minutes. Yeah, I'm going to get my 20 minutes in. I am. In fact, I have, where's my book at? I'm going to put my book up here. Where's my book? I got a book right here. I'm going to go read my book to make sure I get my 20 minutes in, and I'm going to make sure my sons as well are going to get that in as well. So this was a powerful conversation. I want to share on the website as well. So let me get that going. Let's see. All right. And I'll put that in the comments as well. The only limitation students have is the boundaries of their ambition. So that's yeah, that's powerful. We can see everything that was discussed. We have his bookshelf here. And we also have the information about the Read 20, and his book is also in Amazon. You can order it there as well. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Share this with your community, share it with your administrator, your teacher, and let's pursue this Read 20. Let's get our children to reading if they're not reading already. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining in. This concludes Transforming Lives, 50 Educators from 50 States. It's the Florida edition.